Hey everybody, we've got another great project to tackle today. This 1981 Honda CB900 Custom belongs to a friend of mine. He bought it mid last season and it won't start after coming out of winter storage. It sat for a few years before he got it, so we've decided to clean out the carbs, check the valves, and with any luck that'll be enough to bring it back to life. Before getting too far into it, I pulled a couple of the plugs and verified that it's got spark. With that out of the way, I'll take the carbs out and see what we've got to work with. The CB900 is an inline 4-cylinder engine that uses 4 synchronized constant velocity carburetors. As with any engine that won't start, the first thing I want to do is confirm that the gas is good and that it's actually making it to the carburetors. In this case, there's lots of gas flowing through the line, and although it's a bit discolored, this fuel should definitely be good enough to start the engine. Still, I'm going to drain the tank and refill it with premium gas once the carbs are done. For comparison, this is a bowl of fresh fuel I just bought for my lawnmower. See how nice and clear it is? For being 40 years old, this bike is in amazing condition. It's got a little over 40,000 kilometers on it, original paint, stickers, and better than average chrome. It's going to be a real pleasure to work on. With the tank, seat, and cover safely out of the way, the first thing I find is that the bolt that holds the air cleaner in place is missing. That's a pretty sure sign that somebody's been here before me. Although a bike of this age, it almost has to be that people have been in here before. It takes a bit of time and effort to disconnect the carburetor bank from the airbox and engine. There's 4 carbs in a fairly tight space, so it takes patience to remove the 8 clamps and loosen the rubber boots. Once they're free, they can be pulled out just a little bit to make removing the throttle and choke cables easier. Then they will all come out as a single unit. It's also important to plug the intake ports to keep debris out of the cylinders. With everything out of the way, I'll just take the opportunity and check the valves now. It only takes a minute to remove the valve cover exposing the camshaft, then the generator cover so that I can rotate the engine so as to position each of the cylinders properly. There are alignment marks on the end of the camshaft which will tell me when each of the cylinders is at top dead center. The minimum clearance is 0.6 millimeters for both intake and exhaust valves. I'm going to start out with this 1mm feeler gauge and only investigate further if they are tighter than that. The intake on cylinder number 4 checks out at 0.8 millimeters, and the intake on cylinder number 1 is just a little better than the minimum 0.6 millimeters. I'm going to recommend to the owner that we shim them in about a year's time. He only rides on weekends, so it won't be an issue for this year. All of the other valves are at least 1 millimeter, which is perfect. The gasket on the valve cover looks like it's brand new, so there's no need to worry about that either. I've moved on to my cleaned workbench to do the work on the carbs. They're all held together by 2 mounting plates, front and back. The first step is to divide them in the center so that 1 and 2 stay together, and so does 3 and 4. I'm going to do one at a time to keep everything straight. I don't want to mix up the parts and kind of ruin the delicate balance that they're probably in. There's a set of tubes running between each of the carburetors that deliver fuel and allow for air venting. The rubber O-rings that seal these tubes in place are really dry, and there's lots of staining around them from gas leaking out. They'll be the first thing I put on my shopping list. These Allen head bolts holding the float bowls in place aren't original, but are a pretty common upgrade. The original Phillips head bolts get deformed really easily, making them hard to remove when continuously tightened and loosened. Once removed, the float bowls are really clean. There's no debris or buildup to speak of. The gaskets also look pretty good. There's no signs of them leaking, so I'll probably just reuse them. Digging in a little deeper, it can be hard to judge float needles. Eventually the rubber tips dry out and the float bowl will overflow. On close inspection, these ones are going to need to be replaced. There's a wear groove forming from being in contact with the seat for so long, so add another set of parts to the shopping list. The CV piston and cylinder look to be okay. There's no wear marks and the sealing ring is nice and tight. I'm guessing that the jet needle and main jets have been replaced to accommodate the aftermarket 4-into-1 exhaust system that this bike now has. There's an accelerator pump on the bottom of carburetor number 2 that needs to be checked. Right away I can see a rip in the diaphragm, so yet another part gets added to the shopping list. I've also added the O-rings for the float bowl drain screws and the air-fuel mix screws, which are both showing a bit of leakage. So, with the exception of the float bowl gasket and the air shutoff diaphragms, I'm basically replacing every gasket on the carburetor. The choke plate on the outside carburetor has to be removed to allow the individual carbs to be separated and worked on. And each of them has an air cutoff valve on the side with a diaphragm that needs to be intact. These ones are all in really good shape, probably replaced because the rubber is really soft and pliable. I really like using these K&L gaskets whenever possible. They're made to OEM specifications and always fit perfectly. There are cheap aftermarket kits available, but they rarely seem to fit right, and I've been disappointed far too many times in the past to trust them anymore. It's worth the extra money to get a good fit and dependable seal. It's time to completely disassemble each of the carburetors one at a time and soak all the components in the ultrasonic cleaner. Parts are really small and somewhat fragile, so care has to be taken when handling them. This is as far as I need to go. There isn't much gained by taking apart the throttle and choke mechanisms, and it just adds complexity when it comes to reassembling them. All of the fine, small parts go into a sealable mesh bag, while the bigger stuff can sit in the cleaner's wire basket. I check and double check that every piece is accounted for. I really don't want to have to go searching should one of them go missing a little bit later. I'll soak them for 30 minutes in a mixture of Dawn dish soap and Pine Sol. That combination removes all the stains and won't discolor the aluminum like some other cleaners. Once the parts have cooled down, I can blow a generous amount of carburetor cleaner through all the jets and passages to make sure that they're open. It's important that everything is absolutely clean before I put them back together. These small felt buffing wheels come in really handy for cleaning and polishing the mating surfaces where the O-rings on the fuel and air tubes seat. One little bit of debris can mean a leak, so that's pretty important that we get these spotless. Now that I'm convinced that things are meticulously clean, it's really just a matter of putting everything back the way I found it. The easiest way to seat new gaskets is to spray them with silicone lubricant. They'll just slide into place and they always seem to seat just beautifully. Putting the carbs back together is a tricky operation. The tubes all need to line up and the linkage for the choke and throttle cables have to be just right before they'll reconnect. Choke plates are usually mounted with special screws that are peened into place after tightening. That way they can't vibrate out during operation. I found that Loctite is just as effective and it's a lot easier to apply. Before I removed the air screws, I carefully tightened all of them down to the closed position while counting the number of turns. All 4 of them were at 2 full turns out, which is how they were set at the factory. It's really important to set them back to that point before reinstalling them. With everything back together, the individual throttle plates have to be adjusted so that they all open in perfect unison. The amount that they are open can be adjusted by the throttle adjustment knob once the bike is together and running. Finally, the carb bank is back as a single unit and can be installed with all the new gaskets in place and the adjustments set to their original settings. If everything is done correctly, the bike should start and be really close to being in tune. In the words of the Honda service manual, the installation process is essentially the reverse of removal, which sounds reasonable, but is still a bit of a fight in these close quarters. Care has to be taken to make sure that the rubber boots seat properly and are clamped down tightly. A vacuum leak can be a real pain to diagnose. Carburetor's back in the bike and all the linkage operating properly. I've installed a new bolt to hold the air cleaner in place. I'm feeling pretty good about reinstalling the tank and adding some fresh premium gas and then having it fire up for the first time this season. This really is the moment of truth. It takes a minute for the fresh gas to fill all 4 float bowls. My first attempt is somewhat successful, but not quite where it needs to be. It's only after adjusting the idle up that the engine really comes to life. The owner is coming over to take it out for a test run and warm it up so that I can make whatever adjustments are required to get it purring just right. So that's it for now. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.